Hello, my name is Alex and I'm on a mission, a cinematic marathon to examine every single Oscar winner for Best Picture. I've got almost a century of cinema to swim through and the sailing isn't always so smooth, but I can make it because I'm going for the gold. It's 1930, it's the second Academy Awards, and the future is crashing into Hollywood. As movie theaters exchange their ragtime piano players for speakers, the Academy is still trying to figure out how it's going to handle these talking movies, or talkies for short. Frank Woods, the then Secretary of the Academy, said the development of talking pictures has made individual achievements of artists more difficult to judge. They debated whether to separate silent films and talkies into separate categories, but decided against that. Ultimately, all but one of the award winners were, at least in part, talking pictures, having some dialogue or music synced to the picture. But our subject today took it all the way to Broadway, as the second winner for Best Picture is the Broadway Melody. Now, if I were to distill my feelings of this movie into one word, it'd probably be confused. I don't mean that the movie is hard to follow. The things that happen are simple enough to understand, but it seems confused as to what it wants to be and what it's trying to say. We start with peppy, upbeat Eddie, who's just written a keen new song, the Broadway Melody.
Don't bring a frown to old Broadway. You've got a clown on Broadway.
And you better get used to it because it plays 4 times in the movie. Eddie's song is going to be featured in a big musical review, and he thinks he can catapult the careers of his soon-to-be wife, inextricably named Hank, and Queenie, her sister and dance partner. Now, almost immediately after we're told that Eddie loves Hank and he can't wait until they can get married, he starts making passes at Queenie. The movie tells us he hasn't seen Queenie in a while, as both Hank and Queenie have just moved to the city, and she's much more grown-up and beautiful than he remembers, so he decides to spend the rest of the movie essentially two-timing his long-time promised bride for her sister because, I guess Queenie is hotter now? And you know what? He ends up marrying Queenie. Queenie quits show business to settle down with Eddie, and Hank, still wanting that career in show business, teams up with a rival singer that she doesn't really like just for the hope of getting the life she wants, now without a sister or a husband. Hank seems like she'd be the perfect anchor for this movie. She's got a big dream and big plans, but she can't seem to get a break despite all the effort she puts into her work. But I can't really sympathize with her because much of the movie is dedicated to her desperately trying to control her sister. You see, Queenie is new to the city and played up to be very naive.
Calories? What are they?
But after Hank gets cut from the show and Queenie gets accolades for her performance, a performance, by the way, that consists entirely of this, and a performance that she only gets to do because,
That's it. That's better. That's the idea. And listen.
Anyway, after Queenie successfully survives her performance, she gets approached by a man named Jock who offers to buy her dinner. And immediately Hank begins to tell her how she shouldn't go out with him because he's bad and you don't know what you're talking about and I'm your big sister and I know best and yada yada. I mean, Jock does end up being a sleazy scumbag, but we as the audience don't see this until much later. And so Hank warning her sister away from him feels more like she's jealous of Queenie's solo success. And while a controlling sister losing it after her more innocent sister steals the spotlight might make an actually engaging story, that isn't what's happening. Hank is right. Jock is a scumbag. And to make matters worse, Eddie joins in this plot to control Queenie's life, except he alternates between warning her of the dangers of Jock and telling her how he's fallen head over heels for her sweet little face. All this is too much for Queenie, and she ends up running faster towards the life she's being kept from. But then I can't really root for Queenie either. While her struggles to break free from the restraints put on her by Hank and Eddie could be interesting, she comes off feeling more like a brat, basking in the attention she's getting until the ultimate climax of the movie deems it necessary for her to discover the error of her ways and go home with Eddie. None of them give us a really satisfying arc. Eddie gets the girl at the end basically by ignoring his girlfriend's feelings, Hank loses her chance at stardom for a life of quiet misery trying to achieve her dream, loses a sister she's trying to protect, and loses a husband she's trying to make proud, and Queenie learns that the outside world is dangerous and that it shouldn't be explored and she should just do what Eddie tells her to do. Now, these emotionally complicated stories could be played in a provocative way, I guess. It almost sounds like they could be a commentary on trying to achieve fame, but the movie's tone keeps playing it like it's some happy-go-lucky musical. Am I supposed to clap my hands at the misery of a struggling artist? Or at the success of a two-timing hack? Am I supposed to dance along with Queenie as she... And speaking of the music, if there was something else the movie should have going for it, it should be the music. I mean, look at this poster! But most of the big song and dance numbers are kind of terrible. To start with, Eddie has horrible stage presence. He's supposed to be leading this big musical with a line of dancing girls, but he just stands there. He feels stiff, and Hank and Queenie aren't that much better. The only musical number that's even a little impressive is this one, and it features none of the main cast and has no bearing on the story. To cut the movie some slack, it is both an early talkie and an early musical. The Broadway Melody is clearly a movie in transition, and this is even more obvious with its abrupt silent film style title cards, intrusive close-ups, and stretches of awkward silence. And indeed, there was a silent version of the movie, as there were for many early talkies, because most theaters didn't yet have the equipment to play sound yet. They just had a ragtime piano player nervously expecting that pink slip to show up any day now. It seems to me that the Broadway Melody succeeded more on the merits of its technical achievements than anything else. Yes, now it feels fairly awkward and stunted, but it did set the stage for the genre of musical films that boomed in popularity and quality in the years that followed. In fact, it had 3 sequels: 1935's The Broadway Melody of 1936, 1937's The Broadway Melody of 1938, and 1940's The Broadway Melody of 1940, none of which are direct sequels but do share a similar plot of a group of people trying to put on a show. But after finishing the movie, I couldn't get one question out of my mind. Was this really the best picture? Thank you. Hello, I hope you enjoyed our feature presentation. Please do let me know what you thought, and let me know some of your favorite musicals. Some of mine are West Side Story and Fiddler on the Roof, but to be honest, I'm not super knowledgeable about musicals in general, so please let me know if there's any musicals that you really love. Maybe I'll find a new favorite for myself. I know that it's not going to be the Broadway Melody. I guess if I were to really think about it, one of the reasons why I was so disappointed by the Broadway Melody is maybe my expectations were a little bit too high. I knew it was a musical. I knew it was sort of a dance movie, and I sort of know of the like Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers type big Hollywood dance movie that came a little bit later, but is somewhat around this time. So I guess I assumed this was one of those, and it's very not one of those. So I kept while I was watching the movie, I kept waiting for the musical numbers to get better and bigger, and maybe I'll find maybe there'll be one really big, great, flashy musical number at the end, but nope, never happened. Better luck next time, I guess. So anyway, thanks again for watching. I hope you have a great day, a great week, and a great life, and I'll see you next time.